everybody. For those of you who didn't see me before, welcome again. So one of the great things about being able to bring these webinars to you, technology is amazing these days. Like I said, we know that you're very busy and you have a lot going on, even though this may be the little bit downtime we have between the Christmas holiday and the upcoming Valentine's and prom season. We still know that your time is very valuable. And with all Fitz workshops, we have some goals. And if you've ever attended one of our programs or workshops, you know that we are based on goals and planning. We do that with our own business, and we share that with you so that you can take those tried and true aspects and turn them into profitable sales and creative designs for you. But one of the things we like to do at Fitz Design in any of our programs is we want to show you the different products that we have and how they can be used. Just because it's a bracelet doesn't mean it's just a bracelet. Just because it says boutonniere doesn't mean it's just for boutonnieres. When we develop our products at Fitz Design, we develop them thinking, how many different ways can this product be used? And just because you look at it and it's pretty in a catalog, we know that that doesn't necessarily mean that it speaks to you on all the different ways it can be used. So that's one of our goals when we have a workshop or a webinar, is to make sure that you see our products and we tell you the different ways they can be used. Another thing we want to do is we just want to show you how pretty and all the tips and techniques to get that to be pretty. So not only does it look nice, you know how it became and was made to be nice. You know, it's one thing to look at a finished product, but it's another thing to know the secrets behind the scenes and how all that was put together. So not only do we want to show you how to do it, we want to make sure, oops, there's a quick poll that just popped up. Tell us a little bit about your current prom business. For those of you who want to just listen to me as I talk and want to go ahead and take that poll, you can go ahead and answer that. We're just trying to collect a little data as we go along, learn a little bit more about you and our customers and what you want and what you're doing. So you can go ahead and click on that, and I'll just continue on with what I was talking about. Like I said, our first thing is we want to just show you what our products are, make sure that you're familiar with them. The second thing is we want to show you how to teach you how to use them and what to do with them and how to make them into a finished product. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is when we do a workshop or a program, we want to share with you the ideas of how to sell those items. It's one thing to be able to know the things that are out there and available. It's another thing to know what to do with them, but it's really important that you know how to sell them and do so profitably. So those are the three goals and our plan for you during our webinar, is to make sure you not only can see the wow, but you know how to make the wow and you know how to sell the wow. So with that being said, I don't know, is this poll done? Jamie, I'm having a problem with the poll. Can you take that poll down? Thank you. There we go.
Hold on 1 minute, Suzie. Did it close?
Like I said, we're still learning this, so we appreciate you being somewhat of our guinea pigs, and that's why your feedback is really important. So if you're having some difficulties seeing or following along, we encourage you to go ahead and type in your concern or your question into that little question area. That way we can make sure we can address it, because we want to make sure these are a great experience for everybody. And we only know what the experience is like from our side. We don't know what the experience is like from your side. So we really need your input and your feedback. So we appreciate it. If you're having those problems, let us know so we can work out the bugs for our future webinars. So I think I've talked enough about the opening and hellos and why we're here today. But one of the things we're here about today is to show you some great design work and to teach you how to use some of our Fitz products. And it's about boutonnieres today. So our first project that we're going to go with, let me double check, make sure you have, for those of you following along on the hands-on, if you have your products, you should have, let's see here, let me get our product list here. You should have some boutonniere items. One of them is our rocket boutonniere holder. You should also have one of our boutonniere bands. We have 3 different styles. This is our Grecian boutonniere band, but you should have one of those. You should have a packet or we're actually going to just use one today. But if you're going to join us back in other webinars, you'll be able to use the other two in other projects in upcoming webinars. So these are our design discs that come with the magnet. So you'll need one of those for today's project. You should also have some Infinity Plus, our little bling, some sheep leaves or something similar, and another form of one of our foliages. I happen to have the forest path, flowing willow will work, topsy-turvy, any of our decorative foliages will work for one of these projects. So that's something, and then also a little bit of our River of Diamonds. And then along with your flowers, in addition to your floral adhesive and some U-glue dashes. And of course, I know you're all prepared. You all have your tools, because we can't do anything without our tools. So our first project is going to be a boutonniere that is done on the design disc. And we're going to create something, just a little bit of razzle-dazzle, a little something different. We're not going with the traditional for any of our projects right now, but so if you want to take your boutonnieres to a little bit more fun and creative level, this is a good place to start. It's not overpowering, it's not overdone, but what the materials that are there really speak loudly. They really say a lot about, wow, look at that. It's designed, it's creative, it's fun, it's easy to make, and it's easy and comfortable to wear. We know that those prom guys, this is probably the first time, unless they've had an older brother or something get married, this is probably the first time they've ever worn a boutonniere. So making something that they feel comfortable in will just reinforce the importance of wearing flowers, the fun of wearing flowers. And so they'll become expecting to have them for any special occasion, whether it be weddings or anniversaries or holidays. They'll be happy to wear something if they know it's comfortable to wear and it's fun to wear. And this is a great way to get those young guys in kind of like, okay, I can do flowers. So we're going to start off, and I'm going to go ahead and move my camera down so you can actually see what I'm going to create and watch and follow along. And if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. Jamie's going to kind of try to field some of the questions in advance so that if it's pertinent to something I'm doing right at that moment, she's going to go ahead and interrupt so that we can all be on the same page. And because if one of you has that question, chances are a couple more of you have that. And I want to make sure you understand the process that we're going through. But if it's something that's in general, she's going to hold that question until a little bit later on, and we can answer it at that time, or I can get back to you in an email. We always want to make sure that all your questions are answered, but we just want to make sure that we are dedicating enough time so you can learn how to do the projects as well. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our design disc, and we have redesigned this. We've actually put on a larger magnet, and we've made it round. Some of you are familiar with our design discs that are either square. Well, we have redesigned this because, one, we wanted to have a stronger magnet so that it would hold in more applications, not just on a tuxedo jacket. This can actually be used for a lot of different things. It can be used to hold up fabrics. It can be used on a chair back. So it's a great product now that it has that bigger and stronger magnet. And why we went to the round, you know what? It just was kind of a different shape that we've seen in other applications work nicely. And it's a little bit smaller because, of course, it doesn't have the edges. So we found that to work a little bit nicer as well. Doesn't mean that the square was bad. It just means we're always improving. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut off a section of our River of Diamonds. Now, this is about 4 inches to start off with. If you didn't want something quite as dramatic as this, you could certainly make it shorter. Doesn't have to be. In fact, that's kind of fun too if we make those shorter and just have the one long. But we're going to go ahead and cut off a section. And what I did first is I went ahead and I just kind of placed that on there. So I wanted an idea of how far I wanted to cut up the fringe. So I went and cut several for the fringe. And just cut them up. You can cut them at different lengths, or you can also trim them this way so that you have different lengths of the fringe. So it's not all even like I did on the first one. So cut the fringe. Then once I have as much fringe as I want cut, as you can see on the sample here, I actually have a piece of bear grass that's woven in between the River of Diamonds. You can see that a little bit more clear on the back side of it. So in order to do that, take your strip of River of Diamonds and determine where you're going to have it weave through, and then just simply cut the strings, leaving a little gap. Sorry, I'm working backwards here. I'm only cutting 2 of the threads. And then once I have them all cut, I'm going to go ahead and take my bear grass or my lily grass or steel grass and go back in and weave it. I start at the bottom. I don't know why. I know other people who start at the top and it works just fine for them. The trickiest part of this really is finding where you cut and get. Although I have those 50-year-old eyes, so maybe it's just my eyes. And it just weaves right through. I have found this to be easier to work with before I attach it to my design disc or whatever it is that I'm using, just because I have more flexibility with it. So I usually get it that far just to have that on there, and then I go ahead and turn it over. So I'm going to apply my design disc to it now. But I just wanted to have that in there and have some flexibility. Now last week when we were making the corsages, we had somebody ask a question about whether or not they use glue versus the new U-glue dashes. And we had some of our attendees who used the dashes for everything in their corsage and boutonniere work, and some people who have never used them at all. Well, I'm kind of fall in the middle. I'm one of those people who I use them for some applications, but not all the applications. And this is one of the applications where it's really quick and easy to just go ahead and put a couple of those right on the back. And one of the reasons I like this is the dashes are clear, where the glue, we all know, is a little bit brownish, yellowish color. So you can't really see them. I've got 2 of them on there. If I'm a little weary of whether or not that's going to work, then I'll go ahead and put a couple more so pretty much the whole disc is covered. And I'm always better safe than sorry. So I'll go ahead and just put 4. Or if you had one of the strips, maybe about a half of the strip would work. So I've got that on there. Now, if I were to do this, and I do this quite often, where I'll put the glue, I'll cover the entire surface with the floral adhesive and then put it on there. But the one thing I have found with the River of Diamonds, if I don't get just the right amount, if I get too much, it'll start to seep through the River of Diamonds. That's why I like this alternative technique, and I have found it to be very stable and secure once you put it on there. So now I just press it, and it is secure. It's not coming off. Now I have my bases, my whole base ready to start adding the pretty embellishments. Now I'll flip it back over so that I can continue working on the front. Get my glue ready. because now I'm going to really, I want this to last, and I want this to stay together and not fall apart while the guys out there are boogieing the night away. So I'm going to put a little bit of the glue on the back of my bear grass and attach it right to the top of that. So now that is on there. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I don't want it that long anyway. Okay. And there's our starting. Okay. Next thing we're going to add is our dendrobium orchid. Now you'll notice that I'm using silk flowers for my samples. Two reasons I'm doing that. One, I'm not in a flower shop situation, so I don't have access to a cooler full of flowers. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to have everything I needed when I needed it and not have to buy bunches and bunches. I want to be, frugal with my money. But the second reason, and probably the most important reason why I'm using silk, is because if I use silk, I am now creating samples that I'll be able to show in my prom display when I get that set up in the next few weeks. So if you're joining us back on any of the webinars, as much as I love the fresh and I prefer the fresh, sometimes there is a practical application to using the silk, the permanent botanicals, because now I've got my samples ready to go when I set up my prom display. And you're ahead of the game that way. And that's always a good way to be, is ahead of the game. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of pretend that this is fresh because there's a few gluing techniques and gluing important tips that I want to share with you. Is when gluing, and if you're new to glue, this is really important for you to know. The question we always get is how much glue is enough? And is it is it a lot? Does it have to be running? What is the amount? And honestly, the best amount is going to be determined by the size of the flower, the weight of the flower, and the back of the application where you want it to go. There has to be enough glue for it to make contact and stick to the other surface. So too little is not enough. Too much is too runny and too messy. I find that small, medium, large, pick the medium size. About the size of a pea works, but depending on the size of the pea, it depends on the size of the weight and the size of your flower. And what we want to do then is we're going to go ahead, and I like to cut off any of the remaining stems so that it's as blunt or tight to the actual flower itself. You can do that with your floral shears or your knife. So you have a nice flat back, especially working in the boutonniere arena. It's a little different than the corsage where you may want a little bit of the stem length because you're inserting into a bow. When we're making a boutonniere, we're actually trying to make something a little flatter and then adding our depth and our texture with our accessories. We want to make sure that there's good adhesion between the flower and the base. So I tend, depending on the flower, to try to cut that as flat as possible. The next thing that it's important about glue is that we put on the glue over that cut where we removed that flower from the stem, because our glue helps seal in the moisture. So it's not only working as a securing agent, as a mechanic, it's actually working as something to help the longevity of the flower. The studies have shown that when flowers are glued and that cut is covered up, they actually will last a little longer than if they're wired and taped. So that's another good reason why gluing techniques is really the way to go in whatever application we can use it in today. So you can see about the size, the amount of glue I have on there. I've covered up that cut, and it's about a pea size. I've covered to make sure that each little petal has a little bit of glue. So when I go to secure that on there, I'm going to touch it to the surface. I'm going to pick it up, and I've left a little residue of glue on there, and then I'm going to put it back down. The one thing with floral adhesive is it is an adhesive. It is not a glue. Glue is only meant for a temporary connection between two items. An adhesive is used or developed to create a permanent bond between things. And glue sticks best to glue. So by putting your little bit of glue and then removing it and putting it back down, helps glue to glue bond. It will help your flower stay on there faster and longer. And one of the things when I first started gluing things is I wasn't patient enough. And I would put a big amount of glue onto the flower back, and then I'd immediately put it into my corsage or boutonniere, and then it wouldn't stay exactly where I wanted it, and it became very frustrating. So for the first, few months of me trying to glue, I was against it. I didn't want anything to do with it until I learned the proper way to work with it. It works best when it's a little bit tacky, and it always secures itself when it's glue to glue adhesion. So remember those two tips, and that will get you very far in your gluing experience. And we want to make sure it's a good one for you. So back to the other one. Now that I've got, and one thing here, these are all magnets, so everything is sticking together. So I've got that far. You can see we're almost done here. Now I just want to go back and add a few more little accents. And with bear grass, this happens to be, of course, permanent botanical, but even with normal bear grass and lily grass, if you want to get it to be a little more flexible, you can just kind of run your fingernail or the edge of a pair of scissors or even your knife, very much like we do with feathers, to help it get to relax it a little bit. Be careful with the bear grass because we know it's very sharp and you'll get one of those awful bear grass paper cuts. But what you'll notice with this boutonniere, it has some depth. Remember I said we wanted to get the flower flat, and we were going to add our interest with our depth and our texture with our accessories. And that's one thing I did here with the bear grass by looping it out and around. And in order to do that, I took the wider end and I put glue on both sides. So it's not just on one side, it's on both sides, because I want to make sure that the glue touches the base and the flower back. I'm going to go ahead and insert it in. Take it out a second and insert it back in. I'm going to come back over and I'm going to do the same thing with the other end. Put it in, take it out, put it in. And that creates that arch. And you can see it staying very well. Again, patience with the glue. A lot of times we'll put the glue right on immediately and then we go to put it in there. It's okay to have that 1 or 2 second pause to allow that glue to get a little tacky, which will then allows it to stick a little better. And you'll find it's a lot quicker to give yourself that second or two in the beginning than it is to have to keep going back and trying to reinsert that flower. I'm going to take another little, I want a little more dramatic line here with the bear grass. So I cut up another little piece. I'm going to do the same thing. Insert it in, pull it out, and insert it back in. It's coming right along. And the last little accent I'm going to put in there is my infinity. Bling bling. These come, the Infinity Plus come 3 per package. It's one of my favorite to use in boutonniere work because I think it has the bling, but it's not overly feminine. I'm going to go ahead and prepare all my pieces. And for this one, these are great because they come with the pick right on them, so they're great to use in bridal bouquets, and they're great for corsages and whatever because they do have that stick. But I don't need them for this application, so I'm going to cut it off. And we've all had those stems go flying across the design room, so be very careful to make sure you hold that or cut it over a garbage can or point it away from your fellow designers in the flower room because you certainly don't want to impale somebody with one of these stems at prom season because we don't want to send everybody home and need all hands on deck. So just be careful with those those pins when they come off. And you can see I'm holding it as I'm cutting it. And I want to cut everything. If I know I'm going to use all 3 in this, I want to cut them all at once, prepare, get a production system going. And then I'm also going to glue them all at once. I'm going to apply the glue, and I'm going to put the glue right over the area where I cut the stem off. It actually, on the Infinity Plus, is missing a jewel in that area. So it's the perfect place. It's a little platform for me to go ahead and put that glue on. And you can see the amount of glue. I'm puddling it right inside that little well there that was left behind. I'm going to get them all done, because what that also does is by the time I get to this last one, that first one is starting to set up a little bit and get just a little bit tacky. So that's going to allow me to come back and grab the first one and apply it to where I need it. My second one, a little bit higher up. And then the third one goes up inside the blossom. Make sure they're in place. And you can see, it's, oops, oh man, it always happens to me. It's kind of like that pet when you say sit, and they sit all the time, then you go to show off to your relatives and they don't sit. Okay, that's all right. It just goes to show, see, we're all human. We all see, there we go. It stayed this time. And that is our first boutonniere. I want to show you an alternative using the exact same products. We created a little different style to this. Using the same design disc on the back, we created a horizontal version of the boutonniere by using some of the bear grass just down off the lower part, off the front here. Just glued that up inside. And then glued our orchid right over the top of the stems of the bear grass, and then added our infinity onto the bear grass, one on each of the 3 stems. So that just created another little different version of the same type of boutonniere. So if maybe this is a little too much, a little too fancy, maybe you can start off doing something like this with them, and still introducing them to some new and different products in a different way to wear their boutonnieres. Okay, I'll give you a second to finish up and clear away your first project. And in the meantime, does anybody have any questions that you want that you need answered, or want to know anything more about what I just showed you? Go ahead and type in your questions, and Jamie will let me know what they are.
Suzie, was the bear grass artificial?
Yes, in this case it was. It was an artificial bear grass.
That was the only question that has come in so far.
Okay. All right.
Suzie, I'm also getting the question a couple times, is how much would you charge for something like that?
Well, that is the standard question. That question happens, and I'm going to go ahead and go back up so I can see what's going on here. The price is always a question that comes up. It comes up at every design program I present, and you talk to any designer who does education workshops, and it's probably the number one question that's always asked. And there's really no definite answer to that. The answer has to be, you need to charge whatever your shop needs to charge to cover all the material cost, all your labor cost, and all your overhead cost. And I don't know what those numbers are for your shop in your area, because it's certainly going to be different from a shop in the country out in Michigan, as it's going to be down here in the city in Albuquerque, as it's going to be in Chicago or Seattle. So you really have to know your costs. And that's the only way you can determine how much to charge for that. It should never be, what should I charge for that? But how do I charge for that? And that is simple. You add up the flowers, you add up the greens, you add up all your supplies. So you add up whatever your design disc, what you would charge for your design disc, what you would charge for 3 inches or 2 inches or 8 inches, however much of the River of Diamonds you would charge for each blingella or infinity that you put in. And then also I would go so far as, to know, okay, I've used a few drops of glue. Now, I don't expect you to sit there and count out for every drop, but on average, you can get about 10 to 12 corsages out of a tube of glue. That's what I've been told. That's what I've heard. I have not tested that, but I have been told that by several industry experts that about 10 to 12, depending on the method you're using of glue. But know how much this tube of glue costs on average. Know how much your tape cost, how much your wires cost, how much your ribbons cost, and how much are you putting into that. And if I have $4 worth of supplies, then I need to apply my labor charge. I don't know what that is for you. Some places it's 20%, some places it's 30%, some places it's 40%. But whatever your labor charge is that you need to get to be profitable, you add that on top of that as well. So just add up all your cost, know what you're paying so you can have a proper markup. Add it all up. If it adds up to $10, that's what you charge. If it adds up to $20, that's what you charge. It isn't about what would you, but how should you? And you need to know your cost of your products, and that's how you mark things up, and that's what you would charge. So I hope that helps answer that one. Okay, let's get on to our next project. The next project we have here is using our Boutonniere bands. I love the Boutonniere bands. They're so easy to work with, and they're so versatile. I know they're called Boutonniere bands, but here's one of those things. Remember I said earlier that not all our products are just what they say they are? You know what? I'm not a big corsage wearer. I don't like flowers in my hair, but you know what? To me, this is more of a floral accessory. It's a floral piece of jewelry, and I'm comfortable wearing this, maybe a little more futzy or a little bit more hanging down, but still, for a nice little luncheon for ladies, you can use these for ladies as well. They don't just have to be for men's boutonnieres, but that's what we're going to talk about today as a boutonniere, and they're easy to work with. Look at how beautiful that is just as its own. And then the magnet. This is another one where, it can be worn either way. You really don't have to just wear it one way. It can be worn either way. So go ahead and get out your products for our Boutonniere band, which is going to be the Boutonniere band, whichever one you selected. Let me show you here. These are the 3 styles we have. We have the Florentine, the Grecian, I think that's right, and the Romanesque. Yeah, I love them. There's not one of them that I don't love. I think they're all great. So we have our products out for that. I'm going to go ahead and lower my camera so you can see my hands in motion. And I hope that you're all being able to see what I'm doing. If you're not, go ahead and let Jamie know, and she can tell me if I need to be closer or show you things closer or whatever. Okay, so we're going to start off with that. Now, on our Boutonniere bands, because most of them, or they all are, some of them are a little bit more open than others, we don't necessarily want the glue to ooze through that. Sometimes it can be awkward when you're gluing to this and the glue runs through and seeps through, and then it gets on your hands and it gets messy and it gets hard to work with and you get frustrated. We don't want any of that. So even though this is our packaging, this little black disc here is the packaging, it's a great way to build on. You can leave that right on. That way it kind of looks like the tuxedo back right there, what it's going to look like when it's being worn. So you can go ahead and use that as your back and leave it right on. So that way, too, no glue oozes through and onto the magnet, because you don't want to glue that onto it. It's one thing if it gets on our little plastic packaging, because it will actually peel right off this, but you'll have a harder time trying to get the magnet off the back of that. So go ahead and leave that on just as we're creating it. And remember what I said earlier about sometimes we like to use the dashes. This is another application. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but I know a lot of people who do, is the glue, the adhesive, it doesn't stick as fast on metal. And that's because metal is not porous. And the adhesive works better on porous materials. So it kind of slips and slides around on metal until it can actually tack up and start to dry. So again, it makes it that whole process. When something doesn't stick exactly where we want it, it gets frustrating. So this is another application where using the dashes comes in really handy, because it allows us to get a base quicker and not have to worry about that glue not sticking fast enough. And what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to put a couple right on here. And actually you can do it either way. I'll show you both. Go ahead and stick that on. And then stick your leaf right over that. And now that leaf is secure, and this is going to be almost like my gluing platform, because the glue will stick wonderful to the product, the flowers. Or you can, instead of putting it on the boutonniere band, you can go ahead and just apply the dash right to the back of the foliage. Like I said, either way works. I want to show you, give you whatever feels more natural to you is what you should do. And now you can see those are on there really nice and tight. They're not going to fall off. And now I can continue on creating my boutonniere. Next thing I'm going to do, again, here with the rose. Now I know that this is a permanent botanical. However, I can still show you the amount of glue and how I would cut that. And I would come right down onto the calyx as far as I could go and cut that right off. Cut it as flat as possible so that I have a nice flat, larger surface for the glue to stick on there. You know how the calyxes are. You don't want that rose to sit too high up and be tippy-toppy. So you want it to lay as flat. So I cut that as close as I possibly can. And the same technique for silk as it is for fresh. And then I'm going to apply my glue all around, maybe a little bit onto the petals. And it's not too thick, but it covers a lot of area. If you can see that, it's not overly thick, but it does cover a great amount of that space, because then when I go to put it down here, I'm going to stick it down. I'm going to pick it up. And now you can see there's a little bit of glue, and I'm going to put that right back down. Now that will stay in place, and I can continue working on with the rest of it. Okay.
Suzie, will the glue dots hold your flowers securely?
They will hold the flowers, yes. I can't say how securely. Using the dashes is a fairly new method to making corsages and boutonnieres. I personally have not tested it like I would like to, or like I have tested the adhesive. So I stick to the middle. I'm one of those people who I believe it's right in some applications, but I also believe that it's wrong in other applications. I personally would not use it to secure my flowers. Doesn't mean it's not going to hold. And some of you may have had great success with it. I haven't tried it enough for me to feel comfortable. So my answer is yes in some cases and no in others. And you have to kind of try that. I think because the adhesive is permanent and I know these flowers are not going to come off. And I also know that by adding the adhesive to that cut, I'm sealing in the moisture. There's no evidence, there's no proof at this point that the glue dash provides that same protectant, which allows my flowers to last longer. So I'm going to err on the side of what I know is holds the best and is the best for my flowers. And right now, that is the floral adhesive. So if some of you are using strictly the dashes and you've had great success, then I would like to know about that. Let Jamie know that you've had success, and maybe I can give you an email or a call so I can learn more about that. But I haven't had the same success, and I haven't tried it enough in different applications to say, yes, please go ahead and use the dashes in the same way you do the glue. So for now, I say in some applications, the dashes are great, and they're very helpful, and they're efficient and they save time. In other applications, I can't say that. So here we are. And I was going for my bear grass. Get that out of the way so we don't need it. And I'm just going to cut a few pieces. You can see I'm cutting them on an angle, because that kind of helps me slide them into places a little easier. I don't know. I can't say that is the only way to do it, but that's one of those things that's kind of the thing for me. It seems to work best for me. So that's what I do. You go ahead and try it and see if it works the same for you. If not, go ahead and cut them blunt. I don't think it really matters. It's just a personal preference. But I know you see me cutting them on an angle. So in case you're wondering why I'm doing that, it's just my preference. Again, glue on both sides. That's very important. I'm just going to come in here, tuck it up in there, pull it out. And the one thing nice about this, because I added my flower before I added the bear grass, is a little bit of the residue glue from that flower where it's holding on to the ruscus leaves. I can push my stem up into that as well. So I'm getting glue to glue contact, plus adding a little bit of glue into an area that hadn't already been touched by the glue where the rose was. So get it in there, just pull it out slightly, put it back in, and it can stay. Oops. Another thing I like about the glue is that it does give you just a little bit of flexibility to move it around. As it starts to set up and get tacky, it gets kind of rubbery. And until it dries completely, you have a little bit of flexibility to kind of move things around and get them exactly how you want to get them. All right, then we're going to take our sheep leaves, and this is one of my favorites. It's got the little rhinestone on the tip. It's kind of a delicate, it's not, maybe delicate isn't the right word. It's very slim and clean looking. And I think it works really great in the boutonnieres. And one thing I do love is we also have them in the 24 karat. So we offer them both in the sterling and in the gold, the 24 karat. Oh, most of our leaves with a little manipulation, you can see where it was once flat. Now I've added just a little bit of curve to it. I think that's important because we don't want everything to be flat. We want to add depth. All the same design elements and principles apply in your corsage and boutonniere and floral accessory work as they do in your arrangement work, is you still have to have all the elements and principles there. So I've gone ahead and cut off just a little bit of the stem. And the other thing you want to do, I remember I told you earlier that the adhesive on the metal gets a little slippery. It doesn't tack up as fast because the metal is not porous. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to create a little gluing platform. And I find it's easiest to do with a little pair of needle nose pliers. And it can be done with your wire cutters as well, but this just seems faster and it's a little bit easier for me. As you can see, I've created just a little round, almost like a little platform, a little hole there. That's where I'm going to go ahead and put my glue. That allows me to put a little bit more glue than I would if I just had to apply it to the stem. Again, make sure it's covered on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and insert that in. Take it out, put it back in, and that's in place. Whoops. Oh my gosh, that's just happening to me left and right today. Maybe because I didn't push it down. There we go. Got to get your thumbs in there and press things down. Again, I'm going to take the next one. Now, what I would do, what I suggest, I know I'm doing these one at a time, but it's really important, and that's what I'm going to continue here so that I practice what I preach. So I'm going to get all these prepared in advance. Because once you get them prepared in advance, it allows that glue to set just a little bit more and get a little bit tacky, just how we need it to be. So go ahead and get them all cut to where I want them. Get them turned in so I have my gluing platforms. So I have that. Then another little trick to tell you is save a few of these little packing plastic bags that you have. They come in handy for a lot of different things. One, like I showed you earlier, you can just go ahead and keep it right on the back as you're building your boutonniere. If you are a glue puddler, this is a great way because they hold the glue really well. Being that they're a hard plastic, you can go ahead and puddle a little bit on there. But what I like to do it, because I don't like to get my worktop overly messy with glue, is I will put those down. And when I'm going ahead and preparing in advance several pieces, I can go ahead and just use it as kind of like my holding area. Because I'll be able to pick that off without having any. Let's see how I've just laid them in there. And now that I'm ready to go back, I can pick up the one I did first and then insert that right into where I want it to go, into the boutonniere, which is right down here. Pull it out, put it back in. And then the next one's ready for me to go. Pick up, I can slide it in. Slide it out and put it back in. And voila, we are done with the second boutonniere. Oh, no, I'm not. I've got one more little flower. Oh, it could be done. Let's go ahead and add that right in. Right in up here. Okay. Now I'm done. Now, I know as I'm creating these, I'm doing a lot of talking and stopping and starting, but honestly, start to finish, this is about a 2-minute boutonniere. If you have all your products laid out and ready for you to go, this is about a 2-minute, maybe once you get the hang of it, it's probably about 1 minute in construction. It's very quick, it's very easy. Honestly, you could have half of it done in the time it would take you just to wire and tape one rows. So that's another great way to look at when you're selling your boutonnieres and you're creating your list of your offerings for this coming prom season. Consider the labor that goes into them. And boutonnieres is a great place. It's a great area of the prom season where you can eliminate and cut back on your labor extensively. Because using the gluing techniques on some of these great Fitz products, you have cut your time over half of what it would normally take to create some of these boutonnieres. But that's our second project. Once we're done, we can go ahead, take that right off. We have our finished boutonniere. And again, I want to show you another sample of another way it can be done. Again, using the same product. So when you're coming up with your samples, and there are a lot of flower shops who they do, in essence, production work. It's stuck there. Where they actually create samples and they offer X amount of things. This is the same boutonniere. This is the same amount of product used in 2 different ways. So you can get creative and you can get individualized using the same exact product. You choose a different boutonniere back, that automatically makes it look different. You change the direction the boutonniere is worn. That in itself changes, how individualized it is. But I wanted to show you just how versatile these are. This one and the one we did before. same exact product used in only two, and there are many other applications and ways that these same products can be used. That's how you can do production work and still make it individualized and personalized. So keep that in mind if you're one of those shops who offer recipe type boutonnieres and corsages. How can I make the same product look different? Here's your answer right here. Okay, again, we're going to take a quick little pause in case somebody has any questions that they wanna ask before we keep going on.
Suzie, I have 2 questions for you.
Wonderful.
One is, some shops still wire and tape, and they want to know, what do you recommend for magnets with attaching your wired stems?
Ooh. Hello. So they're still wiring and taping, but they want to know how to attach magnets onto that. Is that what I'm hearing, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We actually have a couple different products that work well with wiring and taping. Probably the best one, and it's still a pinning, it's not necessarily a magnet, is our Easy Pin. It still has the pin, as you can see, on the back. And then we have this little foam disc that covers the pins. And this allows you, there you go, that allows you to create a wired and taped boutonniere that is on a pin, but it's a much easier pin, and it's a pin that doesn't rotate. The way this is made, because this is a little wider and it has the 2 pins with this, it holds it securely against the back of the tuxedo lapel so that it doesn't start twisting and turning. So this is one way you can use one of our products, one of the products we have that is developed for a wire and tape. In fact, I'll show you now. I have a couple samples of that exact product being used in a wired and taped boutonniere. As you can see here, it still has the little pigtails or the little stem like you see on your traditional wired and taped boutonniere, but on the back of it, it has the Easy Pin as the mechanic. So this was all done wiring and taping, but it's with the Easy Pin. So that's one product that allows you to do that. Another product that is probably the easiest to work with that is a magnet is our Magic Magnets. And with this one, it's in 2 pieces. And you would just take the one piece and then go ahead and tape that into the back of your stem or your spine of your flower. Let me have a flower here. You would just go ahead and wire and tape that right directly to in these areas. So using the Magic Magnets, just tape it as you're taping it to the spine, and then you'd have the other half that goes on once it's applied to the lapel. So that's another one of our products that can work in the wire tape method, but still have the magnets if you prefer the magnets. Now, if you're doing wedding work, always be sure to make sure that who's ever wearing the boutonniere, if you're going to use magnets, that they do not have a pacemaker. We don't want the magnets, because these are quite powerful. We don't want them interfering with anybody's pacemaker. So if you're going to use them for wedding work, hopefully you don't have to have that concern for your prom business. But if you're going to use that, make sure that you don't use those if someone has a pacemaker. The other magnets that we do have, they're a little bit harder to use with the disc, but you could, if you prefer this product, this actually has, you can see, it has the 4 holes in it. So you could wire through that and wire this onto the back of your boutonniere and use this magnet as well. This is a little heavier and you have to be careful because depending on your width and where you're going to attach it to, this mechanic is probably going to be seen a little bit more than if you used our magic magnets. So those are the most popular of our Boutonniere products that I would recommend using with your wiring and tape method. We do have another product, which is our magnetism, which is just the magnets. We're all familiar with those, and there's just a simple magnet. I have, in like desperate times, used these and just glued them. Let's see if I have just taken the back of something, and I have actually just glued them in like 2 places on the back, and it has worked. I don't necessarily like the mechanic, but it does work, and you may have more success with it than I did, but it is another option, and we're all about options and using things any way they can. So you could take a traditional, wire and tape boutonniere and go ahead and apply these mainly in the back of the bud, and then again maybe once down on the stem, and have our little magnetism as a way to secure that as well. Okay, any other questions?
Suzie, our boutonniere bands only come in silver. So somebody would like to know, can they be sprayed with design master metal to be made gold?
They can. You can spray them, but with like anything metal, sometimes the design master will not stick or it will scrape off. So you just have to be a little more careful in your mechanics and what you're doing, but they certainly can be sprayed. Light coats, just, don't get too heavy so it doesn't run over it, but you certainly can spray these, but it's like spraying any metal. Sometimes it has a tendency to chip or flake off if you're a little bit crazy with the tools and so forth, it will scrape off. So just be careful of that and what you're doing with it. But absolutely, you could spray them different colors. It'd be great. Good idea. Anything else?
Also, Suzie, since you showed them what they could use with wire and taping, so they cannot use the boutonniere bands for the wire and tape method, correct?
It's not 100% correct. It's just more difficult to use them with that because they weren't necessarily designed to be used for a wire and tape type boutonniere. But because it's an open framework, all of these are open, that allows you to stick wire through there to attach something to it. So if you wanted to use it as a back, another way you could use that is these do bend and they do curl and roll up with some manipulation. So you could actually curl this into a cone and use it to stick your stems down inside of it to kind of wrap around it. But it's not meant to be used for wired and tape. It was really constructed for the gluing technique. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to use it with wiring and taping. You just have to figure out your mechanics of getting your wire through the fretwork and then attach to your boutonniere so that it holds securely and that all your mechanics are hidden so it's a pleasing finished product.
That is all I have, Suzie.
Okay, good questions, people. Good questions. All right. Our last project is in our boutonniere rocket or holder here. Now, this one's black that I've done. But these are also available in 3 colors. We have them in the 24 karat, we have them in the sterling, and then we have them in the black. This is probably one of our most popular boutonniere holders. It's sleek, it's stylish, it's even though it's timeless, right now it's kind of trendy with these metallic finishes and just that cone shape of it. A lot of designs you see with the bracelets and the jewelry have like the spikes and stuff that kind of mimics that. But yet it's just very classic and sleek and stylish. So it really goes for a lot of different types of personalities. You could be a rock star, or you can kind of be an architect, contemporary, art lover, and still be able to use that. So the boutonniere we're going to make here is actually done with the forest path that I have. Where's my forest path? Okay. This is the forest path. It also comes in the 24 karat. And then I also used one dendrobium, but I deconstructed it. So that's what we're going to do for this one. We're going to do a composite flower. This is a little fancier, most definitely, but I think it definitely has its place for prom flowers. I'm going to go ahead and lower my camera. We're going to get started. Okay. First thing you'll notice with the Rocket Boutonniere is that it comes with a little plug in it that can either stay in or come out. And I chose to use it for this boutonniere because I wanted a smaller opening. I didn't need that large of an opening in it. I wanted something a little bit smaller, and this has just a little bit smaller, probably half the size of an opening when I put that little plug in there. So it just gives you a little option to keep it in or to take it out depending on what type of boutonniere you're going to be making. And we have our forest path. I want to make sure I clear my desk so you can see what I'm doing. Now, one of our foliages, such as this, we have a couple other ones that are actually sprays. It's more than just one piece of foliage. I know a lot of you are familiar with the chic leaves that we just used, or our rose leaves, which are a very popular leaf, and also our gleaming leaves. But one of these like this here is a spray. And what I love about them, although when I look at the price, I'm like, ooh, that's a little more expensive than just a bag full of single leaves. But I got to look at this as more than just one stem. This has multiple uses to it. I can cut this apart and I can use just this leaf, just this type little blossom here with its little curly Q. I have another leaf over here, another leaf over here, and this. So if I'm selling a boutonniere and a corsage together, I can use this one stem, and use them between the two of them, or divide it apart and make it go throughout the whole corsage. I don't have to just use one stem, stick it in there as is. I can deconstruct this and use this in 2, maybe 3 different pieces. So although the cost may seem a little higher than just a package of the single stemmed foliages, when you start breaking it down and see all the different ways you can use it, then it becomes affordable and it makes more sense to maybe invest in a few of the fancier foliages that we provide. And they're absolutely beautiful, and they're just a lot of fun to work with. So to get started, what I did with this one is I actually just broke this down into 2 pieces. You can see right here, I just cut right off, and I'm holding it. So now I have that section, and I have this section left. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to carefully bend right here at the weld in the back so that it's now flat as opposed to, it's sitting flat as opposed to sticking out flat. I'm going to go ahead and cut off my stem, but I'm still going to go ahead and create my platform. This takes just a quick little measure. Make sure I can get it down in there. And with something like this, I like to put just a little bit of glue right down inside of there. Just go ahead and squeeze a little bit in so that I know what's going in there. And I've got that little glue glob that's forming on the end. There we go. That's forming on the end of my tube. Well, remember what I said, that we have a lot of great uses for Fitz Design product. That includes our packaging. Because if you're ever getting a little bit too much glue and you get that mess, keep one or two of the packages, the cellophane. That's the best thing there is to clean off the top of your glue. You don't want to pick up a paper towel because then you're going to have paper towel stuck to it. The cellophane packages are the perfect little thing to clean off your glue tube as you're using it. So everything we have, we've made sure has a purpose. Okay, so I've got a little bit of glue that's down inside of there. That's just because I want to make sure it holds. Because sometimes the stem, it's going to be kind of wobbly in there. So I'm just giving myself a little extra mechanic here. I'm going to go ahead and put the glue up on my stick down in there and make sure it gets into that little glue pad that I'm going to go ahead and insert that down in. Press it in. I didn't get it. I might have to turn it. Just one more little thing. I didn't size it quite. I was in a hurry. I'm going to go ahead and give it one more little turn. So I want to make sure that sticks. There we go. That's better. And now that's sitting right down in there. I'm going to give that a second or two to start to hold up. So I'm going to just set that down. And I've got some buds from the dendrobium orchids because I don't want to waste anything. I've got my dendrobium orchid and I've got a little bit of ruscus. Don't ever be afraid. You know, sometimes when we want ruscus to come in, or any foliage for that matter, we want it to come in where it's all really small and tiny and delicate, and we get the biggest lush bushes possible. And when we want it to be full and lush for the holidays, it comes in teeny, tiny, tiny. So I just say, you know, just work with what you have. Go ahead and do some selective pruning if you need to. If we need to, go ahead and cut it down so it's the right size. Something like an Italian or even the Israeli ruscus is such a great foliage to use in corsage and boutonniere work because it's very hardy, and it will take some cutting and trimming to make it just exactly the size you need it to be, so it's not overpowering. I've even had to go back in after I've inserted it into a corsage or boutonniere, and what I thought I was putting in was going to be okay, and then when I saw the finish, I thought, oh, that's a little bit too much, so I'd go back in and just give it a little trim, a little haircut. So don't be afraid to do that with some of your foliages, especially if you're using the ruscus family, because it is such a great hardy foliage that it will take a little bit of that pruning and cutting back onto the leaves. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a little glue onto that, get it all on my stem. And I'm going to insert that in, right into that little hole. Pushing it way down in there. And it is spinning right now, but as soon as that glue starts to set up, it's not going to move. As you can see at this one, this one was spinning a little bit when I was working on it, but after I got halfway through it, it had really started to secure in there, so I didn't have to worry about it spinning around on me. I'm going to take some more of my bear grass, and you know what? Never cut your bear grass over the floor. Cut it over your desk because you're going to end up with lots of little pieces. And it's the same thing with your lily grass or your steel grass. Cut it over into a little pile because then you can go back and use all those little pieces. Because, you know, if you grab a new stem every time you go to use it, you're going to be wasting a lot because you don't always use a full stem in a boutonniere or a corsage, or you may use, you know, a stem and a half. Always cut it into little piles because you never know where you're going to be able to grab that little piece that you didn't finish using on the one boutonniere or corsage, and you can use it in the other one. Again, I'm just going to prepare. I like that angle cut. I've got another piece here that's just a partial, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Get up my little landing pad here because I want to get all these prepped in advance. This is what really makes it go fast, when you can get all this prepped in advance. And using that little piece of plastic from our packaging keeps your desk glue free, and it allows you to pick that right up because it doesn't stick like it would to a towel or a piece of fabric or something. It comes right off, and you don't have to worry about the mess later. All right. Now we've got those prepped. I'm going to go back to the first one that I glued and start inserting that back into the boutonniere. You can see it's getting a little snug in there, so that's also helping things from spinning around and moving around too much. Go ahead and take my bud. I'll make sure that gets in there. We want to make sure we use all the stem of the flower. We didn't pay just for the 5 blossoms that were on that dendrobium stem. We paid for all the blossoms and the buds. So I want to make sure that I put to use, because they add another texture and another dimension to the boutonniere. So I want to make sure I add those. Then the next step, what I did was I deconstructed the dendrobium. And dendrobiums are a great flower to use for prom because they are quite hardy. I know they look delicate, but they are quite hardy, and they will allow, very much like a cymbidium, for you to cut apart the petals. And so you can actually use them deconstructed to create a different look, something that's more of a fantasy flower. And maybe, you know, it's not about the flower, it's about the finished look. So I went ahead and cut them all apart. And I'm going to start to apply my glue back on because I want to get these all prepped in advance. And you know what else this is good for? You know, when you get those dendrobiums and you have those 2 or 3 blossoms on the bottom of the stem that have some blemishes, or maybe they're missing a petal, you know what? A lot of times we just get upset and we pull those off and we throw them on the floor because they're damaged and I can't use damaged product. But it's usually 1 or 2 petals, and there's still 4 or 5 remaining nice petals on that blossom. When you do this type of work, when you start to deconstruct and you're making the composite flowers, it allows you to use those nice petals on that blossom. So you're not wasting any of the blooms that come on the stem. It's a good way to make sure you keep all that money flowing. You don't want to and have it ended up on your design room floor. Okay, so I've got those all prepared. I'm going to come in this particular foliage piece. It has that beautiful, that star flower. And so I can go ahead and I can maybe just give it a little more dimension by raising some of the petals up. I'm going to come in underneath with my dendrobium petals, and I'm going to attach them right to the underside. To the underside. Hold on. Oh, there we go. To the underside there. Making the metal flower almost part of the real flower, or the real flower part of the petal flower, however you want to look at it. I'm going to turn here, come in underneath and behind. See the effect that that's creating? underneath and behind. I've created just to make sure they get good contact in there. I've got glue on both the top and the bottom of the petal, so it's touching the actual the blossom here, the foliage blossom, as well as the underside of the stem. I'm not going to waste the throat of it. I'm going to go ahead and put a dab of glue in. And when you're deconstructing an orchid, it works just fine that way to go ahead and use the throat. You can set the throat aside and use that. But just like I had mentioned before, it's very important that wherever we cut it, whether it's the throat or it's the petal, where I cut that petal off the actual flower itself, I covered the entire cut portion with the glue to seal it. So I'm sealing in the moisture. Same with the little throat here. I've covered where I cut the throat out of the blossom so that it will seal in the moisture. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put it in here, take it out so make sure it touches and stays glued. And so that just kind of creates this fantasy flower. And I've used one orchid. If you want to bring in a little more, kind of a little more fancy on this one, you can see here, I took a couple pieces of the bear grass. Let me clear out my spot here so you can actually see it. And I've inserted them horizontally just to give it another look. So here, I'll show you how I did that. I cut a piece, just kind of pre-measured it just by holding it over that. And then where I want the glue to hit, where I want the focal point area, that's where it's going to be like the binding point. Go ahead and apply some glue to it, and then just thread it through. Just threading it through. You can see it coming out over here. As I'm threading it here, it's coming out over here. And then when you get to that spot where the glue is in, just kind of put your thumb up in there so that the glue makes contact. So I've just threaded it through the boutonniere itself. It's not really going through anything except its own, it's kind of like being woven into the boutonniere. But at this focal point area, the binding point is where it's made contact, and that's where the glue is. Now it's in there nice and tight. It's not just poking through. I can't just pop it through by tapping on it. So once that glue sets, it will be in there nice and secure. I'll do that one more time. Again, I just kind of pre-measured where I wanted it to go. Just kind of pre-measure it. Is that going to be long enough? And you can always cut it. You can always cut it down once it's in there, but it's hard to make it longer. So I just want to make sure I have it long enough. And then again, this is going to about be where I want the glue, where I want it to stick inside the boutonniere. So that's where I'm going to apply my glue. Both sides. I'm just going to come back in and kind of, take a peek and see where I see an opening spot. And just push it through. Okay, it's coming through right here. See how it goes? And that's where I want it to stop. That's where my glue is. So I'm just going to kind of stick my finger in there to make sure that it's in place. And that gives me this horizontal as well as my vertical. I'm going to pull my screen up so you can see the whole thing here. See it coming horizontal as well as the vertical. Just add another different dynamic to the boutonniere. So there you have it. There's our third project. Now I want you to see another alternative to that. It's taken to a little different level. And there's a little fancier version of this boutonniere. And for this, what I did is I still went ahead and deconstructed the forest path, but I used part of the blossom down on the bottom part, down here. I attached it down there and used my dendrobium orchid as is. I didn't cut it apart in this one. And then I used the remaining little sprig right there. Oh, you know what? I didn't add this over to my boutonniere. I almost forgot. I got ahead of myself. Oh my gosh, we have to go back because I can't waste. So I'm going to go ahead and make my little platform. I just saw it under there, underneath my trash. I should know better. Keep my desk clean. I'm going to put you down here. So go ahead. That's one thing I always recommend. Make sure you have a fairly clean, I know it's kind of funny when I say that, but you want a fairly clean and organized workspace. Right now with the computer and all my supplies and all that, it's a little more crowded than I would normally have if I were working production for Prom. So that's probably one of the reasons why I missed it. But make sure you have it organized where you have all your flowers and then you have all your accessories in one spot. So as you're grabbing, you have a rhythm that actually takes place. So you know you're always grabbing the flowers from one side, your mechanics from the other side, and that will help keep you a little bit faster in your design. So there, I just added that on to the back. You can still see it. Let's see here. I'm going to move that piece of greenery. So now you can really see how that reflects. And we've used that whole forest path. Added that back in. Now back to the second one here. In order to do this, remember as I said earlier, the glue sometimes doesn't hold on the metal. And even though the rocket boutonniere holder is not metal, it is plastic, it still has that metallic finish to it. Therefore, in order to get this to secure on there right away, I used a couple dashes right onto the holder, and then put a little bit of the glue on the back of the forest path and attach it. So it's actually being held together by both glue and the dashes. And that's the other alternative. Any questions about those?
Suzie, I do have more questions for you.
Awesome.
When you deconstruct the orchid, does it bruise the top?
As long as you're using a good pair of sharp shears. Don't use them for cutting ribbon. Don't use them for anything else if you can possibly avoid it, or if the only thing you do cut is ribbon and flowers. But get a nice sharp pair of shears, and just a very careful, clean cut is all you need. It'll last quite a while. It will leave, I don't want to say a bruise, but on the white petals, you'll see a line. It kind of like almost like a little crease, but it's on the cut. So it's not really, it doesn't damage the petal any more than you overhandling it, so to speak. And with any flower, if you overhandle it or bend it or anything, it's going to bruise. But cutting it with a pair of sharp shears, very carefully, they do not bruise any more than you just normal handling. So it's fine on a dendrobium orchid. The same goes for alstroemeria. Same thing as a rose petal. You can go ahead and cut the tip of a rose petal if you need to get it a certain shape or a certain size. I wouldn't cut all the way around it. Notice I just cut the edge that I was gluing on, because remember, that cut is the same as a cut on a stem. I need to cover it with the glue to hold in the moisture to stop the cut from growing or taking in air or whatever it's going to do. Use that little bit of glue. So you can't cut the whole petal. Don't do that, because then you will see that little rim, that little mark around the whole petal where you cut. But where you glue, it's fine on Cymbidium orchids, Dendrobium orchids, rose petals. We do Bird of Paradise, Protea. I mean, the list is really quite long of the flowers that you can deconstruct, as long as you use that glue to cover that little cut where you cut it from the blossom. Okay, any other questions?
Also, how many days in advance can you make these items with fresh flowers?
Love that question. Glad it was asked. Whoever asked that, that's awesome. If you're wiring and taping, you have maybe a little less time to prepare in advance, and if you're gluing, because remember, the glue helps hold in the moisture. So you can actually start prepping your dry goods, your wristbands and everything way in advance, weeks in advance. As you take in the orders, to start adding in the fresh flowers, you can probably start adding in, depending on what flowers they are. I wouldn't necessarily, if you're using stephanotis, that's something that's got to be done more last minute, just like you would with the wedding. Gardenias, if you're inclined to use gardenias, that's a type of flower that needs to wait a little bit longer. But if you're using roses and alstroemeria and dendrobium orchids and things of that nature, you can actually start production probably Wednesday morning very easily and start gluing those flowers and even petals into your corsages and boutonnieres, making sure you're using an anti-transparent to spray over them before you put them in your bag or your box, and then put them right into the cooler once they're ready and good to go. So actually the answer to that is Wednesday. I've actually started some on Tuesday afternoon, depending on the flower type. So it's really up to you. But what's really important is that you're using the proper chain of care and handling. When you receive your flowers, you make sure you process them properly. You're using preservatives. You're using, all the right things to prepare them and get them hardened off before you use them. Do not grab a flower right out of the box and expect that to hold up. It has to soak and harden off before you can use it. So get your flowers in early enough, maybe Friday or Saturday the week before. Get them prepared and ready. So Monday, Tuesday, you can start sorting and organizing, and Wednesday morning, you're good to go. You can start adding your flowers. Anything else? Okay, while you're thinking, and if
Suzie,
you do...
somebody would want...
Oh, go ahead. Yes, Jamie?
Somebody would like to know what you spray on them.
What you spray on them is what we call an anti-transpirant. Basically what it does, and there's several products out there for you to use. One that's very common and well-known is the Crown and Glory. There's another Pristine. Gosh, they're escaping me all of a sudden, and I should know them. But anyways, there's several products. Finishing Touch is another one that's very popular and easy to get at your local wholesaler. You have to pick which one's best for you. And which one you like the best. There are people who swear by Crown and Glory. There are people who swear by Pristine. I like them all because they all work if they're used properly. And how they work, they each work a little differently. So it's really important that whatever you're using, to read the directions and follow the directions of the manufacturer exactly, because they've tested it. They know they work. I've tested them. I know they work, but they only work if you follow their directions. So don't get a can of Pristine and think you can use it the same way you used Crown and Glory, because you're not going to get 100% use out of it. It's not going to be as effective as if you follow the directions. But check with your local wholesaler. Tell them you want like a Finishing Touch or a Pristine or Crown and Glory. Those are my three favorites. And they'll be able to send that over. You read the directions and start applying that to your finished product, and you're good to go. Any other questions, Jamie?
We can move on.
All right. Well, I do have some other samples of boutonnieres I want to show you quickly before we get on to the marketing session. I wanted to show you just some different ways and different products that we have that will help you have fun with making your boutonnieres. This is done on one of our design discs, and it is one of our buckles. This is our bubble buckles in the heart shape, and our buckles were originally created for weddings and event work. They do have that. There's a line that you can't see in there. It's an actual buckle, like a belt buckle, but they make great boutonnieres or corsages as well. We just took a little of the River of Diamonds, backed it, put on our design disc, and then created a fun little boutonniere using one of our buckles, our event buckles. Another product that is fun to use if you have one of those prom guys that loves the bling is one of our bouquet wraps. Beautiful rhinestone bouquet wrap. And these are just absolutely exquisite, but they make a great backing. It's used very much in the same way we used our boutonniere band. The concept is the same, except here what I did is I used a couple of our magnetism magnets. I covered the back with a satin ribbon. You would choose whatever color you want to accent the his attire or her dress. You could use as an accent, so that just kind of peeks through that magenta ribbon, just peeks through the openings of the bouquet wrap. And then again, I had one of those little orchids that wasn't looking too good. A couple of the petals were all flattened and dirty, so I just deconstructed it, cut it apart, and used the throat and made quite a over-the-top boutonniere, but still something fun to show you that just because it says bouquet wrap doesn't mean that it can't be worn or used in a different way. And again, it's using our magnetism, so that's just the free magnets that sit on there. Another popular of our boutonniere holders is the Diamond Horizon. This one's a great one, I think, for weddings, especially if the bride's having brooches or bling in her bouquet. It's just a small little touch of bling for the groom, but it certainly is fun for prom as well. This one I've used just a couple petals that were left over, some bear grass, and then added some of our flutters to it. And the flutters also have the rhinestone, so it picks up the glitz and glamour from the boutonniere holder and brings it up into the boutonniere. But it's very simple. It's not overdone, but it certainly makes a statement. And that's with our Diamond Horizon boutonniere holder. We also have the Calla boutonniere holder. It's a smaller, more petite, and right now it is available in the 24 karat and in the sterling, the silver. And this one I had a little more fun with, and I used just mainly the foliages, with added just a little bit of the baby's breath to bring in a floral element to it. But we have the little sheep leaves in the 24 karat as well. And then we have some bling bling with the infinity to add to that. Okay. I think it's time we get on to some marketing. You've all been great and patient and hopefully you had some fun while we went through our projects, but now it's down to business. Remember before I said, we like to show you our product and show you the wow, and we like to teach you how to work with the wow, but our main focus here really, whenever we do a program, is to teach you how to sell the wow. And we do that through our marketing segment. And normally Dan Fisher would be the person who would be presenting this. Unfortunately, Dan couldn't be with us today. He is ill. He has laryngitis, so he wouldn't have been very effective in presenting the marketing presentation since he can't speak, and he really sends his regrets because this is what he's all about, and this is what Fitz Design is all about. And his passion is making sure you know how to sell what you're making. It's no good for us to have all these beautiful things if you don't know what to do with it. And he's put a lot of time and effort into developing these great marketing programs that those of us who are on his team are lucky enough to share. So I'm going to have Jamie go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint presentation that we have for our marketing session, and you'll be able to just follow along. If you have questions, please make sure you ask them. And again, and if we can't get to them because we are getting close to our time, I want to be mindful of your time. We'll get to them later. We'll send you an email and respond to them because we're here to help you, whether it's here today during the webinar or it's tomorrow. We're here to help you. So once Jamie gets that up and going, we can continue on with our marketing session. Hello, Jamie.
Susie, did it come up?
Not yet on mine. It's not up on mine yet.
All right, somebody tell me when it comes up, please.
Thank you again for your patience, everybody. And a few of you have left the session, but the majority of you are sticking with us for the long haul. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see it. All right, thanks, Jamie. Okay, just to get started here, most of you know we do have a Facebook page. This is our one way that we can communicate with you. The easiest is for you to just keep to date with us on what's going on at Fitz Design, new products that are coming out, new webinars that are coming out, is keep up with our Facebook page. So if you're not one of our friends, please like us on our Facebook page so that we can keep you in the loop. And you can share ideas and thoughts with us through Facebook as well. So we really encourage you to get in touch with us on Facebook and like us and have us as one of your Facebook friends. Okay, Jamie's going to be my Vanna, and she's going to turn the slides for me. So can I have the next slide, Jamie? It's coming. There we go. Trends. One of the biggest questions, because we are the prom place, everyone goes to us for their prom ideas. We get asked quite oftenly. So what are you seeing? What are the trends? What's going to be current? What's coming? What am I need to be prepared for? And just a quick glance here at what you're going to see, some of the major changes in dress styles for the upcoming year. We're going to see some repeats from last year, but they're going to be in the updated colors. And we believe that the colors are going to strongly be in your pastels, but they're going to be more intense colors of pastels, not that soft baby pastel, but more true rich tones of the pastels, and quite a variety of colors. And I think a lot of the colors are going to be based not necessarily on what's in all over, but what is in your area. So you're going to need to do some homework on that. We're going to talk about that in a minute or so. But let's look at some of the dress trends. We can go on to the next slide. Dresses in motion. We're going to have dresses that have ruffles, dresses that move, that swing, that flow. We're going to see a lot of dresses that have layers to them that show a lot of motion. So when the prom girls are walking around, their dresses are moving just as fast. And when they're dancing on that dance floor, they're twirling and spinning. And we see a lot of that kind of being influenced by the Disney movement. With the Disney princesses, believe it or not, it's affecting an older age group. Disney does a great job at connecting with everybody, but we certainly see an influence in that. And the Dresses in Motion really takes from that whole princess look that we see Disney do so well. So Dresses in Motion, you're going to see quite a bit of this year. Next slide. The legs have it. You're going to see a lot of high slits in the dresses, not necessarily short dresses. Those are going to kind of go away and be a thing of the past. Not that they're going to be gone, but we're going to see more girls coming in with the beautiful long gowns, but they want to show off those young, beautiful legs they have and those great shoes they're buying. And so you're going to see a lot of slits in dresses, which actually is fun because that gives us an opportunity to sell ankle and shoe accessories, because you're going to see their ankles and their feet. So that's an opportunity for us, is to know what these styles and these trends are. So the legs have it. So look for those dresses with those high slits. The next trend that we're going to see is not so vintage lace. Lace has been around now for probably 2 years, slowly coming back into vogue. But I think we're going to see quite a bit more of it this year, and used in not necessarily the old-fashioned ways. We're adding, as you can see in just these two pictures here, the lace is more dramatic. It's a more of a design element than it is just the fabric of the gown. So certainly we want to keep that in mind. Just because it says lace doesn't mean that it's old-fashioned or vintage. It's very updated. It's very trend-forward, but it's adding a texture and another layer to the dress. So we need to be able to repeat that in our corsages and boutonnieres by adding layers the same way that the lace adds to a fabric of the dress. Okay, our next thing that's going to be really good is bling-a-ding-ding. You're going to see a lot of dresses that have bling to them, rhinestones, sequins, just a lot of sparkle and a lot of shine. No matter what that is, whether it's at the bodice, whether it's at the hemline, you're just going to see a lot of sparkle and bling come to the dresses. And that can be fun because that allows us then to add that same bling to our corsages and boutonnieres. So we don't have to be afraid to offer that and have that available, because if they're looking at it and they're liking it in what their dresses are, then chances are they're going to look for purses and shoes and of course, corsages and boutonnieres that have that same bling in it. So keep in mind, have a lot of bling on hand for the bling-a-ding-ding season. And another trend that we're going to see are the fitting silhouettes. So you're going to have those girls who like that princess, long, flowy movement, but you're going to still have those girls who want to be the sophisticated lady, and they're going to do something that's a little bit more form-fitted. And as you can see here, our selections that we're showing as our samples, they all have bling or they all have lace on them. So a lot of the trends are crossing over depending on what it is. They cross over and accent each other. They complement each other. So we got to be mindful in that when we're suggesting accessories and items for our corsages and boutonnieres. Just because it has lace doesn't mean it can't also have bling. Okay, so that's what we see is trends. Normally we spend a lot more time on that, but we just wanted to give you a quick overview of what you can kind of expect coming up in this next year so you can be prepared and when you're looking at products to bring in for your prom season, this hopefully will help kind of point you in the right direction of what you should have on hand for the girls to have. The next slide here, this is definitely a Dan Fisher insert here, and it's perfect. I don't think he came by the last name Fisher by accident. He asked, and it makes so much sense. And when I first heard him say this, it made so much perfect sense to me. But how do you fish? He wants to know, how do you fish? Do you, get in a boat, go out there and just pretend that, okay, I'm going to put my bait and hopefully it's the right bait on my hook. I'm going to drop it in the water and hopefully there's a fish that is hungry enough that swims by, who likes what I have on my hook, who's going to bite it. Is that how we go fishing? Well, for a while there I did. But until I heard Dan's way of fishing, it all made more sense. And that's really not how we should be fishing. We need to be fishing like he fishes. And that is, next slide, please, Jamie. That's how he fishes. Look at those fish. The man knows what he's doing. He has both a goal and a plan. He prepares for it. He finds someone to take him out to the hot spot where they know the fish are biting and where they're definitely, if he wants shark, they know where to go to get the shark. If he wants grouper, he knows where to go to get grouper. I don't know what kind of fish those are, so I hope he forgives me if he's listening. But I just know they're big. And he caught them because he had a goal and he planned and he went to where the fish were. He didn't wait for the fish to come to him. He definitely went where the fish were. Next slide. As you can see, he's very successful at what he does. The point is, go where the fish are. And then you can bank on it, as he says, that you're going to get fish. And the same theory is what if you follow me along, the same theory applies to, do you want the prom business? Do you want to increase your prom sales? Then you need to go where the girls are. You've got to go where the fish are. You've got to know what the girls are doing. And where are the girls going so you can be where they are? They're going to the dress stores, the tuck stores, and you need to go there. You need to visit those places and see what's happening and what's going on. That way you become familiar with what dresses are current in your area, what colors and styles and textures you're seeing. Are you having prom shows, or are they having prom shows? And can you partner and participate in those shows with them? Go to the teen jewelry stores, visit Facebook pages, check out all the things that the prom girls are checking out as they prepare for prom. And that puts you in the position not only to gather a bunch of information and become more familiar with what they're wanting and expecting, but you put yourself in front of them as well by doing that. Another reason you want to go to some of those places is so you can put together your team of prom all-stars. This is very crucial. You need to have a team. You heard the saying, it takes a village. Well, it takes a village to be successful in business these days as well. And so getting a team of all-stars together is so helpful. You know, you've got those dress shops, those tuck stores, and you know, the hair salons and nail salons and tanning salons and all those places those girls are going to visit within that time when they're planning for their prom. If you get together and you team up with them and you become stronger and more visible together, there is definitely an advantage to making sure that you put those all-stars together. You can start promoting together, working together to build all your business together. So I kind of want to get you started on that. You know, like I said, and if you joined us last week, goals and plans are very important in success. So one of the things we want to get you going is to start you thinking and start you actually doing this, getting your goals and plans. Take a moment right now, just a brief moment. If you have a piece of paper hand, and I want you to just write down 4 or 5 people that you're gonna go out and contact right now in your community to be part of your all-star team. Is it, you know, do you have a nail salon? Some of you might be in strip malls where you have a nail salon or a tanning salon down the way from you. Go check and talk to them and say, you know, what are you doing for prom? And do you do a lot of business for prom? Start the dialogue. Get these people engaged in your business, and you'll see how much difference that makes. So go ahead and write down some of those. And if not, make sure that you put that, okay, that's one of my goals. I have to start getting my prom all-star team together. Okay, Jamie, next slide. And I do want to mention quick here that we do offer these PowerPoint presentations. If you are interested and you want it at following the webinar, you can let us know that. And also these webinars can be viewed on YouTube with shortly after. I don't know if it's an hour or 3 hours or the next day yet. Maybe Jamie will be able to give us that answer in a little bit, but you can go back and review these webinars on YouTube. So if you missed something, because I know we go kind of fast because we only have 2 hours here and we're getting close to the end, there is opportunity for you to get this information after the fact. So here's another goal for you: connect with the girl. And this really is the most important part of the sale. The key here is not just to get the sale, but it is to connect and build that relationship, build her trust, build her loyalty, because you're building long-term customers here. It's not just, you just don't want to see her in for her prom and then never see her again. You want to see her for prom, you want to see her for her wedding, and so forth and so forth. But right now, if you connect with the girl, you're going to get a bigger sale and you're going to get a lifelong customer. So you've already increased your sale right there and your business right there by just doing that one thing, connecting with the girl. Next slide, please. And again, here, you know, we like to give you homework. So write down some ideas of what you're going to do or what you want your staff to do to connect with the girl. What are some ideas that you can connect with the girls that are coming in? Start thinking about that and making it your plan and making it part of your Salesforce plan to make those connections with those all-important prom girls and prom guys who are coming into your store. One of the reasons we say it's really important to make the connection, and if you want to go ahead and put up the next slide, Jamie, that will be great, is this. Think about the $35,000 bride. How would you respond if a bride came into your store and she had a $35,000 budget for her wedding? She says, here I am. I've got $35,000. I want you to do my flowers for my wedding. You'd be ecstatic. You might be a little freaked out, but you would be happy. That's a great order to get. That's a great potential to have that bride come in and be able to spend $35,000 with your shop. Well, think about it this way. It's not just about that one bride. That one bride was a prom girl at one time. And that one single bride, prom girl, will turn into that $35,000 bride if you make the right connection. And here, let's go on the next slide, and we'll show you just a few examples of how easy that is for her to become that prom girl, to become that $35,000 bride. If you look at the numbers as how much she could possibly, and this is really quite low as far as what you think, one prom, maybe the second prom. She's got a couple homecomings. She's got a graduation from high school, a graduation from college. She also has friends who are graduating from college and from high school, and she's got hopefully just one wedding. But if you look at all the things that this one prom girl, if you connect with her, could potentially bring in, she actually becomes that $35,000 bride. And you started it and you early, and you have carried that wholesale over a lifetime of that one person and not just at once. I don't know about you, but I would rather have continual repeat sales than just one big sale from somebody, because we know that if somebody's coming back in, they're also telling other people about that they have confidence in you and they like what you do and they know that they're going to get the best service and the best product from you. So that means more than just somebody who just comes in, throws down a big amount of money and walks in and you never see them again. Not that they're not nice to have, but we want those customers are going to come back in our stores time after time after time. Another way to look at it, if we can have the next slide, reverse it. It's not maybe just the bride, but look at our casket sprays in our funerals. This is florists. We love our sympathy work. It's our bread and butter. But every time a casket spray comes in, you are losing a customer primarily, or the possibility of a customer. And we all know just from surveys and statistics that you need 10 new customers every time you lose one in order to regain, because that's how much reach one customer has, is they reach 10 other people. And so when you lose one, you have to find 10 more to replace that one. You know, the prom season is the ideal time to work on that growing business. This is your future. This is their future. And so you really need to treat that prom girl like she is that $35,000 bride who walked in and just said, here, I have $35,000, because eventually and potentially she is. Okay, one way we can certainly connect with the girl is to really be individualized in what she wants. And the best way to do that is through signature corsages. It allows you to be creative. It allows you to show off what you're able to do. You want to individualize it, but you want to make it something that the girl can kind of relate to. And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the girls, they live on their phones. They live on the TVs. They know who's hip and who's not, and who's hot and who's not. And so when they can connect and relate to those people, those icons and idols in their generation who they try to relate to and want to become, by giving the signature corsages these unique names like Rocker Girl or Vintage Sweetheart, or choose some well-known, the Katy Perry, Beyonce, whoever the it person is, if you can kind of relate that so they relate to those people and to that style or that look, things that they relate to, then they're going to really know that you have something to offer, and you can charge more for these signature corsages. You can be more creative with these signature corsages, and you can certainly set yourself apart by offering signature corsages. We have actually some testimonials from people. We actually had one shop who increased their sales. Their average sale went from $22 to $29 by offering signature corsages. That's quite an increase. They had 100 more orders from their school. They did 85% of the orders were from the girl by following these marketing tips and stuff that we told them to do. So hopefully you're going to come back and join us, because we can't do everything in 30 minutes in our marketing. We have so much to tell you that we spread it out between all our webinars. So it's really important that you come back to our webinars, even if you can't join us live, to at least check them out on YouTube. We hope you join us live, but we definitely want to make sure that you know that just what we're trying to cram in right now, because I know I'm going to run a little over. It's 2:58 right now, and I still have a whole bunch more to go, but It's so important because this right here shows you that by following our marketing tips, this one shop had a great increase, an increase any of us would love in one prom season just by following our tips. Okay, next slide. Actually, I'm going to go right over these because go over the next one too. They're just testimonials, and although they're important, there's some other items here that I think are just as important, if not more important. Another goal for you is to increase your sales by following this Fitz rule. Now, be ready. Hold on to your seats if you haven't heard this from us already. The price of the corsage should start at 15% of the dress. Just that easy. Try to start your pricing. And you go, well, how do I know? How do I know how much they paid for the dress? I'm not going to come out and ask. That would be rude of me. Well, yes, but there are other ways for you to get to know. One, you're going to be going and visiting those dress shops and those tuck shops, and you're going to become familiar with what the dresses are selling for in your area, right? So you're already going to have that in your toolbox and arsenal ready to help you determine whether or not a dress is a $100 dress or a $500 dress. So you've done your homework that way. Another way to help that, if you're going to have the next slide, is to get the prom magazines. These prom magazines are great. We all have the wedding magazine sitting out in our consultation area, and then we forget about the prom. The prom girls, if you think about it, it's like their mock wedding. They're kind of pretending that they're having a wedding and they're planning for their prom. So consider it and use the same tools. Get these prom magazines, because chances are, if their dress is in that prom magazine, they paid a pretty penny for it. They paid more than $200 or $300 for it. And you can tell if it's got lots and lots of handwork and beadwork and sequins and all that fun stuff, it's going to be a higher price than something that doesn't. So that's going to kind of help be your guide as well. And although you may not be able to say, okay, the dress is this amount, so 15% is this amount, you're going to have a better ballpark idea to when you start suggesting, because you're going to hand that magazine over to them and said, is your dress in here? Or can you show me one that's similar to it? And when they turn the pages and they say, that's it right there, one, you can maybe recognize the designer. You can look at the style and the details of the dress. So you're going to know, I'm not going to just offer them a $25 corsage or a $35 corsage. I'm going to offer them a $75 corsage. Use those as your tools to help you determine what that 15% should be. So even though it may not be an exact number, it's a ballpark for you to strive to be in, as opposed to just, starting at your typical normal prices. It's okay to start high and then come down. We all know once you give them that low ball price, it's harder and harder to get them to increase or add things to it. So always start high and use those tools to help you determine where you want to start that with. Another good reason to have those magazines in your shop, if I can have the next slide, I love this slide, I think it's hilarious actually, is this is the way we see color. If you can see the girl on one side, it's not just red. It's all these different shades of red, and it's not just purple, it's plum and it's eggplant and it's all these wonderful colors. The guy, it's just red. And so when he comes in to order her corsage and he said the dress is red, what's red? And we all know how particular they can get, and we don't want them coming in the day of pickup and say, that's not red, my dress was burgundy. Having those magazines, hopefully he has seen the dress or seen a swatch or something of it, and he might be able to help direct you by using those magazines to pick the right color. Another important thing after all this is the boutonniere. The webinar is the prom flowers, the boutonnieres for the men's are really, really important. Don't stop short. When you're selling the corsage, automatically sell the boutonniere with it. That way it coordinates. That way you can use products from, if you're selling flutters, for instance, which come 3 in a pack. Maybe you only need 1 or 2 for the corsage and you use 1 for the boutonniere. It allows you to stretch your materials farther so you have no waste, because we don't want a straggler of a flutter here and an infinity plus here. We want to be able to use everything that's in the package. And when you sell the corsage and boutonniere together, it's easier to do that. Make sure you have samples of boutonnieres. We concentrate on corsages. We want to make sure we have that, but we also need to make sure that we have samples of our boutonnieres. Don't leave the order to chance. Like I said, make sure you ask for it. and make it part of the process. Try not to use frilly or pretty words when you're explaining the boutonniere, especially if the guy is there. They don't want to wear something that's delicate and frilly, so choose your words wisely. Don't be afraid to offer incentives to prompt the order. I mean, if you order your corsage or boutonniere together, maybe you get a percentage off, or maybe you get a rose or something. Whatever that is, what you can work within, but don't be afraid to offer incentives to bundle. We all bundle everything else. We might as well bundle their corsages and boutonniere orders as well. And just like you do with your corsages, make the boutonniere's signature names that help sell them. But most importantly, don't be afraid to get creative. Don't limit yourself to one flower variety, just roses. I showed you quite a few examples of different types of flowers that work just as nice, and we can deconstruct and reconstruct. So just have fun with it. It's really important that we have fun with what we're doing. Okay. Go on to the next. I'm going to go over these really fast because I'm already past time. Go ahead and go past that one, Jamie. Here's another goal. We want to get the girls into your store. So if there's countless ways, and I'm going to just check 1 second here, see how many people. I'm sorry, computer issues here. Okay, we're losing about half of you, and I understand you have to get back to work or things going on, so I'm going to go really, really fast over the next few slides here. We have a lot of ideas of how to get the girls into your store. Actually, we have some of our other upcoming webinars talk about these specifically, so I'm not going to go over them in great detail, but talking about how your store looks, does it fit what the girl is looking for? Is she going to walk into your store and think, this is a great place for my grandma to shop or my mom to shop, or I love shopping here? You've got to make sure that if you're attracting them with your store displays and what you've got available to them, you've got to make sure your staff is prepared. You've got to make sure you're talking to them at their level and where they're communicating, which is on social media these days. So you've got to make sure you're providing those avenues for the girls to say, okay, this is a place I want to shop. This is a place I want to spend my money, because they relate, they understand, and they have what I like. Another way to do that, next slide, is by having some events. And again, we're going to talk about this in depth. We actually have an upcoming webinar, and I'm sorry I don't have the information with me, and I should know that exactly which one, but we're going to talk about having prom events. So it's, watch for that. Go to our Facebook page, and we'll let you know when that one's taking place. If you've heard about having prom events in your store and you want to learn more about how to do that and what you need to do, you'll want to join us for that webinar, because we're going to talk in depth about how to do that, how to promote events and how to participate in events, not just in your store, but also in your community or at the school level. Prom fashion shows, that's another way we can do that, and that will be covered in that other the other webinar as well. Jump ahead a couple here, Jamie. All right. Another webinar that we're going to have is going to speak really, really in depth on our fundraising and connecting with the schools. This is a great place for you to get involved and to get in front of not just the students, but their parents as well, and the schools. It just opens the door for so many other possibilities when you're involved with the community and the school. We have checklists, we have letters, we have a whole bunch of information already put together that is available on our website, if you want to check that out, that can help you get started of connecting with the school, which we all know that's where the girls and guys are, so why not start there and get involved with your schools. But like I said, make sure you follow us on Facebook so you can find out when that webinar is going to be, that's going to specifically talk about fundraising and getting involved with the school and using that to your benefit to help you grow your prom business, because it's a really vital way for you to reach a lot of people and to connect with the girls and connect with their parents. And after all, they're kind of spending their parents' money anyway, so we want to make sure we're making them happy as well. Okay, let's slide ahead a couple. Let's go ahead. All right, make it special. Really what this is talking to, it's the prom day. The day is here. You've taken their order, you've connected with them, you've made these beautiful corsages and boutonniere, and then they come in and pick it up, and you're busy and you're crazy, and you shout out a number for the girl in the back to pick it up, and she brings it out and she throws it on the on the desk, and you ring her up and she's out of the store. You know what? We've all been there. We've all done that. And it's hard to break that cycle because you're busy, but it's important that you do break that cycle. Making it special and connecting with the girl continues to the day she picks it up. And there's countless ways for you to connect with her and continue to connect with her and make them feel special on that day they're picking up. Have an area where you can take photos, or photos for them, a little photo booth area for them and their friends to take photos of themselves picking up. They're going to post to Facebook or Instagram, and wherever they're posting, that's going to help spread the word about your business to all their friends and their friends' friends. And so have an area where you can take a photo or they can take a photo. Bring out the corsage if you can on a silver platter. Have several of them in the back room. They don't have to be real or expensive, but make the way you bring out and present the corsage and boutonniere to them very special. You put a lot of time into it. They put a lot of time into it. We don't want them to just feel like, here, get it, go, and be out of my way. You want them to say, this is what I created for you. Don't you just love it? Isn't it? This is going to match your dress perfectly. Continue that connection into that process and follow up with it. Don't just stop short because you've got the order and you made the order. Just make her feel special. And that also helps negate any possible concerns or dislikes or dissatisfactions once they leave the store. If you take that moment or two and talk to them and make sure they like what they have and how happy you are to give it to them, if you make it a positive experience, chances are they're going to walk out of there with a positive experience and they're going to come back. They're not going to come back and say, well, it wasn't the right color, because you had given them that opportunity there because you made them feel special and you took that extra minute or two while they were in the store. We also, if you can text them that their corsage is ready, or text them a picture of their corsage once it's ready. That's something fun to do. That certainly helps build that connection and that relationship. Send them a thank you after. You send your brides thank yous after. It can be just a quick text. I mean, that's easy to do and quick to do anymore, and it doesn't cost you any money. And you already have their phone numbers, so send them a quick thanks. We really hope you enjoyed your prom. We hope you come back and see us again. Maybe slip a little note inside the box that says thank you. If you come back in the next week or two, we'll give you a beautiful rose or, something. Think of a promotion. You're all creative. I know you can do it. Just think of something fun to get them engaged, to keep them engaged after the fact, after the prom day is over with and things have settled. You want to keep building that relationship. And then most importantly, I think, is doing the after prom review. It's not important that we make it through the holiday, although we're glad it's done and over with. It's really important that you record what happened. What did you do right? What did you hit your goals? Were they too big? Were they too small? What did you learn? Keep track of things. Keep track if there was anything major in the weather that happened that might have stopped the prom business from coming in. Who knows? Maybe there was a hurricane that year. But these are all little things you want to keep track of, from the flowers you ordered, from the products you ordered, what colors seemed to sell, what colors didn't seem to sell. Keep notes on all that and do an after prom review. And we do, on the next slide, we actually have a form that will help you get started with that. It's on our website as well. And that will kind of help get you going on doing an after prom review, because it's more important. When the year goes by, you kind of forget, don't you? All the little details and all the little nuances that made a prom successful or didn't. You kind of have an overall feeling, but it's really hard to remember all the little details. And when you do these prom reviews, when you sit down for the next year, it makes it so much easier to go back and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now let's do this, let's do that, let's increase this way. But keeping record and track and getting your staff involved in that review process to find out what took place everywhere in your shop, not just with the designers, but with also the sales staff, is really important. You'll find that it helps you become more successful with each coming year and each growing prom. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I think there's one more slide, but you can get that with it if you want to do if you want to ask for the PowerPoint, because I have kept you. We're almost 15 minutes over, and quite a few of you are still here with me, and I appreciate you sticking it out as I'm losing my voice here. But I just want to thank you again for joining us, and I hope that you enjoyed the webinar experience, and I hope that we'll see you again on our next webinar. The next webinar is next Tuesday, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It is Floral Jewelry Part 1, setting the trend with fashion-forward floral accessories. It's going to be fun. We're going to have some great projects for you. So I hope to see you next week here again on the same webinar channel. And again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. We appreciate you here at Fitz Design, and we know our success is built on your success. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.